Borders, they have loads of history under the surface, and it's often a place, if you start to ask questions, you can go deep into history and start to understand many things.
We can learn something from here, probably, how to manage a difficult past to make a good present and hopefully a better future.
What divides us is mistrust on the people that you don't know, that you don't understand, or that you don't try to understand.
What unites us is communication. You get to know, you get to understand, and you get to solve the deals you have to deal with.
Jesus Christus.
Why do we do what we do? Why do we as people do the things that we do? Why countries or governments do what they do? I guess the curiosity into that question is what inspires me most.
It's this graphic novel thing we do somehow works exactly the same way as the video. You collect many things and then you put them together. It's an accumulation game.
So this border between Austria and Italy no longer exists, but you can see many things under the surface.
So my name is Carlos Spottorno.
My name is Guillermo Abril. I am a Spanish journalist. I work for El País newspaper, which is the most read newspaper in Spain.
I'm a photographer and a visual creator. Other situations that you might find in other places, once at the border, they become more stressed, they're more evident. The main idea is to make it accessible and pleasant to the eyes, without compromising accuracy, trustability, and then by trying to solve a particular problem of communication, you may discover a particular way of doing things by looking for solutions.
You're looking for the views.
Yes,
right
yes.
Okay.
So I was browsing Instagram and seeing what place would go through my timeline in Instagram more often. And more often was Caesar. It was always the same picture from the same spot, exactly that spot. That means the first line of narrative is visual. I put together the images in a way there is a visual narrative, a visual storytelling that you can understand. There is something going from point A to point B.
This idea of landscape, the poet singing to this beauty of the landscape, to the Edelweiss, is related to Romanticism, which is, of course, also related to this idea of nationalism. So this connection between nationalism and Romanticism, nationalism and landscape really got our interest.
All around the world, people who live in the mountains have something in common. First of all, yeah, the fact that you see the mountains everywhere, whether from the top or from the valley, mountains are omnipresent.
This beauty is not just a natural beauty. Of course, there's nature, but there's also some work to be done. And I remember this moment we encountered a gardener who was cleaning a field.
He looked like he was cleaning the whole Alps himself. It was like, oh, there you go. This is why all this is perfect, because there is one guy cleaning it. And we came closer to him and asked him a little bit about his own job and what he was doing.
He was from Romania. And he told us, yes, I'm just preparing the season. I'm working for the patron, Il Capo, he said, an Italian guy, I guess.
That was a kind of a metaphor or an example of how Europe works.
There's also a panel over there that explains So today we decided to visit Fortezza. It was a town recommended by many people we had interviewed. You should visit this town. It's a special town.
Fortezza, which used to be a very important village with migrant workers from all Italy. But of course, when the train's importance decreased and the border disappeared between the two countries, when the Schengen area united Europe, it became like a ghost town. And now migrants are the ones that are going to this town, and they are the ones defining the city. And I remember speaking to the mayor in Fortezza, and he told us maybe I'm the last major German-speaking or Italian-speaking mayor. Maybe the next one is an Indian or a Pakistani.
We visited this German school in Franzenfeste, and the day was Ramadan. So more than half of the students, or maybe even 2/3 of the students, were following this Ramadan. So they would not go to school, or they were taken for a hike or to a climbing site close to the village. And we were explained that this was also part of the effort for integration.
I assume that you live around, or you have been raised around, probably. What is the border for you?
This relationship with the rocks and the climbing and the mountains here is so deep that it's almost an initiation ceremony.
I think what divides us is mistrust. Mistrust on the people that you don't know. Mistrust on the people that you don't understand or that you don't try to understand. That's the reason why I believe this conversation with the archaeologist Andreas Putzer was so important. He gave us this concept of the Alps, of the border, as a place of communication between people.
Yeah, Ötzi, the Iceman.
He was found in the 90s.
We are right on the border between Italy and Austria.
And when they were investigating the causes of his death, they found that he was murdered.
From here to here, there are only 92 meters.
The red shoe was still in his bed?
Yeah.
He had an arrow in the back, at the shoulder, and also some defense wounds in his hands. But for some reason, the border today goes exactly through the place where he was found.
This idea of the first European being killed on the border between these two countries, I think it's really powerful to investigate and to use as a metaphor.
When I was exploring and developing this language with La Grieta del Riss, I explored different ways of treating the images.
La Grieta del Riss, it's a trip all along the border, the external border of the European Union, starting in the end of the 2013 and ending in 2016. So we could see migrants coming into Europe, refugees coming into Europe, and all the refugee crisis at that point.
So I was looking for something that is truthful in its respect for the photographic nature of the image, so that you understand this is a photograph. But at the same time, it needed to be flat. You know, in photography, what you get is an illusion of depth. You kind of lose part of the illusion of depth here. There is a certain degree of abstraction.
Sie sehen hier, dass im Grunde diese Tunnels mit Sprengstoff ausgehoben worden sind. Aus diesem Grund, weil eben auch hier das Material relativ instabil ist. Und von dem her hätte man nicht gekonnt hier mit der Tunnelbohrmaschine arbeiten.
So the Alps, essentially, they're a clash of tectonic plates. And that is what makes this place so special. Human beings, through cooperation, we can overcome something that looks like a natural border. We can overcome it through cooperation and technology and making tunnels, for example. And it's so interesting because you are uniting tectonic plates, cultures, you're going through this seemingly impossible to overcome natural barrier, which are the Alps, then we can overcome it through roads and through tunnels.
It's like mud.
Whenever the rock and the material inside the mountain is not so stable, that's a fault line. This is where two plates or two pieces of rock clash, and the friction part, that's the fault line. This might stay unaltered for 1 million years, for 10 million years, but then suddenly something makes a small movement, even of centimeters, and then suddenly it's a disaster, which is more or less what happens here. This is the perfect landscape, the most beautiful place you can imagine. But whenever there is a problem, like First World War, the problem becomes enormous. As Francesco Palermo says, it's easy to make an aquarium into a fish soup.
World War I created a new border in this region, and somehow it was the beginning of a new problem between countries.
It was like the first industrial war. And because that war was so cruel, you can see traces everywhere.
You can still see the traces of this World War I very well in Palpicolo, and you can still even find bullets from that era. I was trying to find an Edelweiss, but somehow found a bullet from 1916.
Fronts were actually really close. So from one front to the other front, there were barely 100 meters, which is extremely close if you consider that you're using machine guns, you're using heavy weaponry, also in such an uncomfortable place and terrible place, up in the mountains, very cold with harsh weather, I suppose, very bad conditions in terms of lack of food, lack of medicines, lack of everything. So we were looking for traces of First World War, and we came through a ceremony of reconciliation that happens every year in different locations. They usually go to a mass, they sing anthems, they go to give flowers to the monuments of the fallen, and this year it happened to be in Asiago, far away from the current border, in fact. But apparently there were fierce battles there. It was interesting, and to us, that was a very good sign. When there is a ceremony of reconciliation, even 100 years after a war happened, that's probably a very good sign.
World War II is somehow not that present. And for example, I can say that in the Kaiserjäger Museum, you are seeing along the way different uniforms and different maps, drawings of different soldiers from all eras. But when it comes to World War II, the museum somehow skips that topic and goes directly to the European Union.
Prego is Italian.
So we came through this Krimle Town House, which is a hotel that has been there apparently for about 600 years.
600 years? Yes.
Das Krimle Ochendal, das ist ein offizieller Handelsweg gewesen, von Norden in den Süden. Den Handelsweg haben die Kelten vor 5000 Jahren begonnen zu bauen. Die Römer haben ihn fertiggestellt, und das ist ein offizieller Handelsweg gewesen bis 1938, bis hin zum Anschluss. Und auf jeder Nord- und auf jeder Südseite hat es ein Dauernhaus gegeben.
In 1947, a large group of Jews were escaping the Russian troops. So they wanted to go to Italy to take boats to Israel. And they were helped not just to rest and eat and stay there for a few days, but also to cross the border. They were guided through the mountains.
Das ist der Dauern, da geht's drüber. Und so wir da herum sind, dann geht's herum.
Of course, if you don't know the mountains and you're fleeing with elderly people and children and in very poor conditions, you need help, not just to sleep and eat, but also to not to get lost and not to die in the mountains, because you may die of simple starvation if you get lost. That was a chapter of history we were told, and we wanted to know more about this. But what we didn't know, and that gave another perspective to the place. In this Krimler townhouse, they also experienced the presence of about 10,000 German soldiers escaping from the Allies in Italy, trying to get to Germany, so fleeing for their lives. One day, a soldier, very young soldier, arrives to the village and says, "Okay, I'm coming, but wait a minute, there's 10,000 behind me and they're coming very soon."
Das ist halt anders gewesen. Das, ja.
Ja?
Ja, das war so.
Gut. Super.
Geht schon gut.
Vorne!
All along the exhibition, we are talking mainly about what is separating us.
It's this idea of default, which is a very unstable part of the rocky interior of the mountain. If we begin to think that what separates us is something that happened millions of years ago, it's a good starting point to think about if that is what divides us, what unites us.
Tunnels or bridges. We need communication instead of fences.
People will maybe look back to us, to our society, like we look at slavery now, like something from the past, something that they have overcome. Who's got the right to say that I am from this place because I have been born over here? Maybe that's the question for the future.